Hi,
Finally.
finally. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Thumbprint Conversation. And our guest tonight is Swati Bhattacharjee. So I'm just trying to confirm that we are audible. Am I audible, Swati? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, you are clear. And I'm
Good.
visible, like you can see me?
Yes, and you're looking very nice.
Oh, you too.
Thanks.
So, welcome, Swati, to Thumbprint Conversation on why women write. So we're just trying to explore why women write or why women do not write. I can hear some noise at your end, Swati.
Is it?
Yeah, can you
The
put on
fan
your
is not
earplugs?
working.
Can you put
Yes,
on your
I will do
earplugs?
that. Yes,
Yes.
yes, I will do that. Yeah, can you hear me now? Am I
Yes.
audible?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So Swati Bhattacharjee is a journalist who writes on poverty alleviation and gender justice. She has written several books. The latest is Bagher Dudh or Tiger's Milk on elementary education in villages. She was a Fulbright Fellow, is currently working on a media fellowship from Population Reference Bureau, Washington, D.C., on women's health in the time of COVID-19. Welcome, Swati. Swati, just mute your phone. If you're using your phone or your laptop, just mute it.
Yes, it is muted. It's
Yeah,
muted already.
yeah. Okay. So, Swati, I was really interested to know about your tenure as a Nehru Fulbright Fellow at the Abdul Latif Jameel Poverty Action Lab at MIT Cambridge, USA. Your mentor was Nobel laureate Abhijit Banerjee. You had even co-authored the book Bikalpa Biplab with him. Please tell us about your stint there. And journalists deal with the different facets of poverty.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Before I begin, I must say that it is a privilege to be a part of this great conversation series that you have started. I'm really thankful to you and to Thumbprint for this opportunity. I may have a few friends here who are probably watching this, and I would love to introduce you to them. It's always an honor to introduce Teresa Rehman. She is one of the most admired journalists in India. She has written extensively on the Northeast, which is an area which the rest of the country, ignore much. And she has done a lot of work and is still doing a lot of work to bring Northeast India, its varied culture, its richness, as well as its problems, into the mainstream of Indian public discussion. And Teresa has won many awards. A list would not fit into this timeline. May I just mention Ramnath Goenka Award? And she has worked for Tehelka, she has worked for India Today, and she has written many books, of which I particularly recommend Bulletproof, which is a latest book, which is on the experiences of a journalist and a lone woman journalist who is reporting on terrorism in the Northeast. It's really a wonderful read. Thanks, Teresa, so much. And thank you. I can see that you're very businesslike and you would like to begin the conversation at MIT. It was indeed for a journalist, for a working journalist who sort of landed up in one of the greatest institutions where poverty is studied at minute detail. I was there in 2010 and 11, and I was doing groundwork for my PhD, which was on the Gram Sabhas. And as you know, self-governance is one of the ways in which we think that poverty can be alleviated and people, rural people, poor people can have much greater control over resources and therefore can help themselves better. So while I was there, I could see look very closely at some groundbreaking work that is being done. Of course, they are academics of the highest caliber. The work of journalism and the work of academics, even when they are working on the same subject. That is that the differences and the similarities were one of the things which I think I really studied. And I could see that they do so much of the work that we should be doing. They do it with so much more rigor. So when we go to a village, we also talk to people. We also talk to a lot of people who are out there. Say maybe I'm doing a story on cultivating, but they do not only ask questions. They get such a detailed profile of this person, of his choices and his behavior, and the reason for his or her preferences. So I realized that how much we journalists, how much we just assume when we talk to people, but we assume nothing. And even, in the development dialogues, which Harvard, MIT, and many other, Boston University, people, economists would come together to have these wonderful discussions. How minutely they would ask questions. So if somebody said that these are the people I talked to and these are the questions I asked, somebody would immediately ask, but when did you ask that question? Was she going to work or was she returning from work? So this is the kind of methodological rigor, accuracy. So I became aware of the potential of data. I became aware that data itself can tell stories. That, what academics are doing, what academic research, what statistical research even is doing, is also telling a story. And as a journalist, I must learn to train myself not only to write down this what we see and what we hear on the field, but also the stories that are being told by academics, by statisticians, by policymakers, which are sometimes stored in very inaccessible documents. But I must train myself to access those documents.
And what was your book about? Bikalpa Biplab. What was it about?
Okay, so Professor Banerjee was kind enough to consent to write a series of articles for our paper, Ananda Bazar Patrika. So we co-authored a series of articles on poverty alleviation. The ideas that he had, the Poor Economics is the famous book by Esther Duflo and Abhijit Banerjee. It had come out while I was still there. In fact, we were studying a Xerox copy of that book in the class. It was still not out. So, but the ideas of that book are, of course, groundbreaking. In development economics, so there was a need to familiarize the idea of evidence-based policy and RCT, randomized control trial-based policy in the public discourse. So governments were just beginning to see the necessity for evidence-based policies, but people also had to, be familiar with the idea to be able to support them. So that is something that we tried to do over the next few years. We wrote a series of articles saying that perhaps we pay too much attention to ideological uh, um, uh, ideological locations while we are debating on poverty. Perhaps we should look more minutely at why some policies work and others don't. So these are the things that we tried to explain. And after a point, when we had a sizable number of articles, we decided that we will add some more articles, some by him and some by me, together and write a common intro and bring out this book. Um, that is why we called it Bikalpa Biplab, that is alternative revolution, because a point that Professor Abhijit Banerjee wants to make is that revolution comes from small things rather than big things. It's not the huge ideological changes which necessarily bring change in people's lives. It may be the small things. It may be that you reduce malaria by a certain percentage. You reduce malnutrition. You reduce poverty, a poverty trap. You increase literacy up to a certain level. It may be something as apparently trivial as killing worms, getting rid of worms in children, which may increase their attendance in school and therefore bring better outcomes in literacy. So these are the things which we wanted to put under the idea of alternative revolution. We want people to think of revolution not as a faraway idea, but as everyday doable things. Things that you and I can do every day.
And you've been, nurturing many young journalists, and you have also been talking to media students. So how do you think can journalists deal with the different facets of poverty, especially in the context of India?
I'm glad that we are having this conversation at this point because, unfortunately, extremely unfortunately for us, it seems that poverty is going to come back again in a bigger way. India had made very impressive progress in reducing poverty, but now with the COVID and the lockdown and the unemployment that we see, there is going to be a surge in poverty. So it is very, very essential for every journalist, everybody in the sphere of public discourse, to look at the ways in which poverty are affecting people and how to be sure that the needs of the poor are actually being addressed. Resources are scarce now. Resources are scarce in the government sector, the resources are scarce in the private sector. So it is extremely essential that we use the resources in the most effective way and waste resources the least. Just take one example, education. All these years, we have one of the major investments have been in the brick and mortar schools that we have built. We have built. I mean, the additional classrooms, new buildings, these were our major investments. Look today, we are not even using those much. And what we need today is something in which we have not invested, which is the IT network. So many villages do not have a single Wi-Fi or a mobile data connection. So we now really have to think of learning as investing in the child. And when the differences in per head, how much every state invests per child per year, you find that there is a staggering difference. So one recent study I found is saying that Bihar in elementary classes, that is 1 to 8, Bihar invests something like 5,000 rupees. West Bengal is 9,000 rupees, whereas Himachal Pradesh, it's 59,000 rupees. So these are the things that journalists have to pay attention to. And, instead of small things, instead of being driven by the agenda set by the states. We have to find out our agenda from development policies, from the problems at the ground. I think that as journalists, I think you'll agree with me, Teresa, that we pay too much attention to what leaders say and what they say to us. We don't pay enough attention to what is happening in the ground and how people are facing what kind of problems are actually facing, or even the data that is there out there, which is showing up very different pictures. So looking at poverty is really looking at people and their needs and their entitlements and how much are they, how much access are they actually getting to their entitlements. It's, I recently read a very nice comment that the opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice.
Okay.
And this is what I think every journalist should keep in mind.
Mm-hmm. And your current work on women's health in the time of COVID is the project that you're working on. Would you like to share something
Yes.
about that? Yeah.
Yeah. It's truly, I mean, you know that the two most important indices of deprivation in India are class and gender. Of course, caste is also there. So class, caste, and gender means that each of these divides will be affected disproportionately by any problem, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it is an epidemic, whatever it is, the poor, the women, the low caste, the tribal will always be affected so much more because they're in a already weaker situation. So I wanted to see that how women's general health might be affected, and we actually have a very scary instance before us, which is how Ebola had played out in African countries. And UN data there shows that, many more women died at childbirth during Ebola than people who actually died from Ebola infection itself. So because there were scarcity of hospital beds and women were afraid to go to hospitals for catching the infection, so the childbirths all took place at home. They were unsafe. Women died. So you can already see that the same scenario is being played out in India. Vaccination was non-existent for almost 3 months. Women's health checkups, the number of institutional deliveries have declined. And at the time when people were coming back, the long march of our migrant laborers, the women were actually giving birth at the roadside. So it was a horrendous situation, and if now the situation is not good, and the biggest risk is that it will be ignored because media is looking at nothing but COVID deaths. The deaths from childbirth, from unsafe childbirth, which were completely preventable deaths, those will be ignored because the state thinks that we will pull up the states, the leaders, only if there is a COVID death. We are watching only the COVID figures. So women and children will be neglected. And you and I, we have to do everything. Our journalist colleagues will have to do everything. Our civil society friends will have to do everything to keep the focus on lives that we can save. Only if we don't, we are not negligent.
And since you write on gender justice, how do you think can journalists look at stories, at issues with a gender lens? And how can this trickle down to reporting from Mofussil towns and small villages?
As we both know very well, there is no story called a gender story. Every story is a gender story. I think that knowingly or unknowingly, the concept that we journalists use all the time is that of power. You know, the power is your ability to get what you want. Power is your ability to get other people to get you what you want, to do as you would say, as you wish. And that power is also the power of gender. That women have less power to do or to get what they need, what they want, what they aspire for. So this is where journalists need to catch on, and they need to be especially vigilant about themselves also. Doing a gender story is also to be self-aware that do I somehow believe that the woman deserved what came to her? She deserved that kind of violence. Do I also feel that she was in the wrong place at the wrong time? Do I also feel that she was it's a bit too much that she demanded her father's property. So we also carry these kind of mentality, this judgmental kind of thinking within us. And doing a gender story is to be very careful that you are not stereotyping women and men. You are not stereotyping responses, such as our honorable judges, I'm sorry to say, sometimes do by saying that a raped woman can't go to sleep, or a wedded woman, a married woman has to wear shakha and shidur. So those kinds of fixed mentalities we have to be very aware of, and we have to see that the way gender works finally, the way honor, the concept of honor works finally, is to deprive women of resources. And by resources, I mean both opportunities and property. So those are the things which form the crux of any gender story.
Yeah. So if we have any, yeah.
Can you see the photo behind me, Teresa? It is a photo of Gauri Lankesh.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so she was a woman who was deprived of her life for saying precisely what she wanted. So here is a woman who said, I will do what needs to be done and what I will say what I can say. So this is one of the things that, this is in a way, perhaps what we also need to remember is that, and I think that we can now talk about that also, that it's not just enough to do a gender story. In a media space, there also has to be enough women. So in that sense, to tell stories, any kind of stories. So doing the right thing is also means that having enough women to tell stories, not just their own stories, but any story. A story can change when a woman is talking about it. So we need more people, women, who often risk much more than men in being able to tell their own stories and stories of others around
her. Well, I would like to tell our readers that or our viewers that if they have any questions, they can post it. Yeah, I think Choibal Basu has a question. Do you think the concept of Bikalpa Biplab has any connection with postmodernist discourse on culture?
Well, that calls for a very long discussion. But generally, if you look at Bikalpa Biplab, it is more an action-oriented book. It gives certain, what should I say, sutras, certain tips, strategies for fruitful action rather than going into a debate of different isms or ideologies. One can act from the point of view of postmodernist culture. There is no problem in that. But there are some specific problems that keep people in the poverty trap. They have to be addressed nonetheless. And those kinds of actions can be inspired by anything. You can be inspired by Gandhism, it can be inspired by Marxism, it can be inspired by postmodernism, or even just simple a government's diktat. Actually, they have shown that some dictatorial governments have done very well in reducing poverty. So it's isms are important, they have their own importance, but poverty alleviation is a kind of very carefully deliberated action that comprises of many more things than just isms.
Okay, Swati, you are also associated with South Asia Women in Media. So these are like
And
network
so are
of,
you,
So how do you see women in journalism now and when you had joined the profession? And, what do you think are they writing? What are these women writing?
Why don't you say a few words on that and then I'll join you. I'm really interested to know what you think.
That's not fair.
Come on.
Actually, I somehow I feel that even a male journalist can be very very gender sensitive. It's not necessary that you have to be of a particular gender to be a story in a very sensible and a sensitive manner. So I really feel that there are some men who are equally gender sensitive, and it's just by increasing the number of women in the newsroom, I don't think we'll be able to change things. We need what we need is a vision in the newsroom. Just a sec, I would like to intervene. Swati, there's a lot of noise at your end. I think you lower the volume. Just lower the volume of your phone. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can hear you
Yeah,
clearly and I don't know, I
now you are
wouldn't know
clear.
how to lower the volume. Okay.
Now you are
So
clear.
maybe
Now
I
you are
was,
clear.
the angle was wrong.
Yeah. Now you are clear. Yeah, there was otherwise there was
Okay.
some. Yeah. So yes, tell us when you started. I don't know when you started. Way back.
I started right after my post-graduation, so that's more than 20 years. And yes, I do see many more women have come in, but still it's not enough. And I'll tell you where I find that it's not enough. It's still nothing much has changed, and that's in the districts. There are many districts without a single woman reporter reporting full-time, reporting professionally. And that, I think, is really skewing up our journalism, our media space. So we need many more women, and it's not just about what the product that we get, that which is very unsatisfactory. It's also fact that sad that women do not see themselves as working journalists. Young women. When I go to the colleges and the universities in the districts, the media classes are full of women. I mean, more girls than boys seem interested in media as a subject. But for some reason, they don't see it as a practical choice when they choose a career. And I wonder why. One of the reasons, perhaps, is that they think that it's not safe. A reporter has to go anywhere, anytime. And that itself may be that is a problem. There is also a lot of violence in our politics, which may be intimidating for women. Bad language is used all the time. So those are also very threatening. They may appear threatening. They may even think that it is not fit a profession for women. On the other hand, I think that there is still a bias also on part of news organizations when they come to recruit women, especially in the districts. They are also perhaps inhibited by the ideas of safety. But all of this is making the media space still a very male space. Both for women who are in regular jobs in media and for women who are stringers or freelancers working from outside. So we are on behalf of our organization, South Asian Women in Media. Right now we are doing a study in Kolkata, which we hope will be able to bring out the situation of safety and dignity in the workplace. And we hope that in 2 months' time, we will have a much clearer picture of what it is like to be a woman and be in the media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, since we don't discuss the safety and dignity of male reporters or male journalists, so that shows that there is a gap. And in fact, I
Yeah,
would like to
yeah.
narrate one incident when uh, I wrote a feature on menopause once. That was 10, 12 years back. And my editor, I was on the editorial desk in Guwahati, he was shocked. Uh, I think you'll just hold your mic like you did just now, Swati.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not speaking now, so.
But still there
Okay,
is this sound. Yeah, that's
okay.
fine. So he was so embarrassed that I wrote about menopause, and he just found it too embarrassing to even discuss it with me. And I wanted to argue it with him that this is an important story. I mean, every woman, since we can write about motherhood, we write about childbirth, but there's this noise again, Swati. I think, yeah. Hello. Yeah,
Is it better?
yeah. It's
Is it
better
better?
now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's better now. So that's what I mean. I think probably nobody's ever broached the idea before that let's do a story on menopause, and he was so shocked that this female actually wrote a piece, and he said, no, nothing doing this story can't go, so he spiked it. So that's what
I
I
almost lost my job. I almost lost my job once because I wrote erection when I was writing a story on Viagra.
okay. Okay.
It was most unbecoming of me, I was told.
Okay. And okay, let's go back to your book called Dangerous May. That, what is Dangerous May? Please tell us about the book. The name sounds so interesting.
It is a collection of some of the reports and essays on women who have challenged the system in one way or other. Dangerous May is a word which Mamata Bandyopadhyay, our chief minister, had actually used once about a woman who had been raped and who had accused the police of torturing her because of reporting her rape. There was a political color in the rape. It was parts of some political revenge game or whatever. So it struck me that a raped woman was being seen as dangerous by a state. A woman who has been raped, who has been rejected by the police station, and who is fighting just to survive, fighting for her dignity, is seen as dangerous. So that's why actually, because the state professes equality but actually endorses the patriarchy in every way, it is dangerous to them. They see a lot of danger if a woman actually stands up and demands to be treated with equal dignity. If a woman refuses to be shamed, then she is seen as dangerous. If a woman refuses to cow down and become silent, if she is not afraid of actually describing what has happened to her, if she refuses to be intimidated and to just disappear, then she is seen as dangerous. Because the state is patriarchal through and through. From the police station, the investigation, to the courts, even to the doctors, the medical examination, everything is it treats the woman as a secondary citizen, and tries to everything is seen as the woman is seen as being too bold, too troublesome, too shameless. And now, of course, she is seen as scheming. She is seen as Virodhi, as somebody belonging to the opposition camp. So all of these make the act of sexual violation something else, but not the basic thing that it is, which is violation. So that is why when a woman reminds the state that the state is failing in its basic duty to give protection, to give basic security to every citizen every citizen deserves, then the woman starts looking very dangerous to the state. So there is a politics of violence, and the state is on the wrong side of it.
Okay, coming back to your journey as a journalist, there is a comment from Sri Rupa Banerjee. She said that can't see Swati properly. I think you'll have to move back a little bit. Yeah.
I hope I'm audible when I move back.
Yeah, you're audible. Yeah, you're audible. Fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So coming back to your journey as a journalist, I mean, when did you decide to be a journalist? I mean, was there somebody who inspired you? What was it?
It is still not very clear to me why I became a journalist. The idea of writing always inspired me. So after my post graduation, I think I was all set for academics, but I thought that why not try for 2 years, 3 years to see what is happening in a newsroom, and then I will get back to my PhD research. Well, I got back to it finally after nearly 15 years. So, and I have not yet left journalism. Um, everything that I had studied in college and in university has started taking on a very different meaning when I started writing. And I was very lucky that in the very beginning, I got colleagues who were very hands-on, but who also loved books and reading. So I got, it was like, actually, it was like a living laboratory where you work out what you have learned. And of course, all of us came from university having read a lot on feminism, this, that, we all had our ideas of liberating the world. And then when you find something like a sati happening in Rajasthan, and then very close to that also Susmita Sen becoming the Miss Universe and stuff like that, a lot was happening out there. If you remember, the Beijing conference on women was also happening in the mid-90s. So all of that brought a lot of gender issues in the mainstream, much more than ever before. Then the HIV/AIDS epidemic was also happening in the 90s, which brought sexuality to the mainstream, to the drawing rooms. So all of those were, to me, very challenging. And I was always wondering that how do I write about these things which affect each of us, especially women, very deeply, and but who are not able to articulate it. So in these last 2 decades, I think many of us have seen that those things which were never even spoken of before, like erection, like menstruation, now coming into everyday discussions. And one of the things which I really noticed this time, Teresa,
I would like to intervene. Swati, your voice is again, it's becoming very distant. Would you just, yeah.
Is it better?
Still,
is it better?
No, what I don't know. What is the problem? Yeah, now, yeah, speak now.
Is it better? Yeah.
Yeah,
so
slightly better.
During the ARP fund, for the first time, the sanitary napkin packets were dealt out. So I think that this is a very big departure because, for the first time, sanitary napkins have become a part and parcel of our relief packets. This have never happened before. So you can see that, so menstruation is now a valid subject, a respected subject for the society at large. So there was a lot of struggle to make this happen, but it finally happened. And
would you just would you just not hold your mic? Don't hold your mic. Just leave it like that. Yeah. Just continue.
I think that journalists can claim a little bit of credit there. That we also wrote so much to bring these things in the main discourse of media.
Well, another thing which do you see journalism as a public service?
Do you not? I think we all do. Yeah, because a consumer.
Swati, just hold the mic then. Let's see. I don't know why it was good. Yeah. Speak.
So what? If I was selling a biscuit, say, then I would be accountable only to the person who buys my biscuit, but not somebody who has not bought it. I wouldn't really care for his or her nutrition, or whether I've done any kind of service or justice to that person who is not my consumer. But when I'm a journalist, I know that I write to the poor, and poor people don't read papers. Sometimes they watch TV, but the news is not something that they like watching. They like watching the serials. So most of my consumers are middle class, well-educated, mostly higher caste people, mostly men perhaps, who would be reading or looking at my reports, our reports. But all the time we are doing justice to who? To the cultivator, to the laborer, to the women, the domestic help, people who are not actually our consumers. I think that this is the biggest challenge of journalists who write for, who work on poverty, gender justice, caste justice, that they have to, they are actually writing for one set of people, but the set of consumers is completely different and may even be antagonistic to those causes. So we should realize and we should accept that our job is tough.
Are you holding your phone? I just intervene for another. Are you holding your phone or have you placed it somewhere? I don't know. Yeah. No, your voice is echoing. Your voice is not clear. Maybe you hold the mic close to you like you did before. Yeah. And don't hold it below the phone. There's the audio there.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now you are clear. Yeah. Don't clutch on to the phone at the bottom.
Right.
Hello.
Yeah, I can
Hello.
hear you.
Yeah, but your voice is no, your voice is not clear. Hello. Yeah. Can you speak again? Yeah, you can hear me, but your
I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, but your voice is not clear.
Should I drop it?
Hello?
Should I try it without this? Will that be
Yeah,
better?
try it. Yeah.
Is it better now?
Did you take
Is
it
it
out?
better? I
No,
have
it's
taken
not
it
better.
out. No?
No.
You can't hear
Um,
me?
yeah, just hold. Can't you place your phone somewhere? Are you holding it?
I can. I can.
Yeah, now you're clear. Yeah.
Now I'm clear?
Yeah, you're clear now.
Okay.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay. Just give me 1 minute.
Yeah, this is much
Okay.
better. Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
Okay. So, Bagher Dudh, that is a very interesting name for a book. Please tell us, why did you call it Bagher Dudh?
Oh, that is something. This book is on school education,
Hmm.
and uh, it was Ambedkar, B.R. Ambedkar, who had said that education is like tiger's milk. शेरनी का दूध जो पिएगा वो दहड़ाएगा. Whoever drinks the tiger's milk will roar. So that is the idea of my book also, that education should bring empowerment. It should bring some confidence in our children, that my life is going to change. This is the confidence that education should bring to the poor children, especially rural children. So I looked at the schools, especially the government schools in the villages, but I also talked to private tutors and other providers to see whether education is turning out to be a life-changing experience for the children. And this is where I came off with both very disappointing stories, in many ways more disappointing stories, but some stories also of wonderful achievements against huge odds. So there are teachers in government schools working in very little recognition, very little acknowledgement, but doing a whole lot of work in actually changing. I mean, they're almost doing miracle in bringing change in the lives of the children that they work for. Whereas the general picture is disappointing. We have seen that with Shambhushikha and also with the right to education, the general quality of education has gone down a lot. Learning outcomes have suffered a lot. Only very recently they had started going up a little bit again. But a lot of this is also because there is very little accountability of teachers. And teachers know this. And better teachers, they see this as a problem, that nobody is there to measure the performance of the teacher. I mean, a teacher who actually teaches everybody to read and write versus the teacher who's maybe 20% of his or her class has learned to read and write. The system does not make any difference between these two teachers. The rewards are the same. But it means everything to the children. And I actually saw many teachers who are working in very marginal, very poor villages, but who are actually running schools where every child can read and write. These may be, tribes, this may be very low caste, but those children can read and write. But there are again schools, very big schools, very near big towns, where 60%, the teachers openly say that 60% of my children will fail if I take a test today. So when I ask that, then what are you going to do? What are we to do with these 60 children who have not learned to read and write after spending 3-4 years in school? And they say, we don't know. They just shrug and say, we don't know what can be done with them. So there is a kind of acceptance, even among teachers, and of course in society in general, that some children will not learn. That education is not really for some children. It's really not for everybody. which is a very middle class idea. And this is what I want to expose. I think that the middle class sees the poor children as threat because, the government jobs are the most coveted. And they know that the number of competitors will go up so many fold if the poor also compete, which is actually happening right now. They are doing, many of them are were doing very well despite huge odds. But what is most unfair, what is absolutely inhuman, is that the education system should actually work to keep our children, a large number of our children, uneducated. And that they should push so many of the children outside school. For example, in Bengal, more than 16 lakh students, nearly 17 lakh students enroll in class 1, but only about 10.5 lakh students, they graduate from school. So, I mean, they sit for the board exam. So where are all these children going? These are big questions that the school education system has to face. But all the teachers will always tell you that parents are not aware. Parents are not aware, they don't give enough time, the children are not interested. That's why we are getting poor results. So Bagher Dudh is about how we are wasting a wonderful opportunity and most important years and so much of public money, which could bring so much change, which could bring so much power to the poor, but we are just wasting it because our schools are mostly very poor.
And now with this whole online education thing, I mean, how many children can access smartphones or have access to internet? I'm sure the dropout rates are going to really rise.
Yes, and the unfortunate thing is that it doesn't need to be. Kerala has already shown that it is possible for a state to bring education to every child's home, and it's not a very big cost. You get 2, 3 cable operators to give you a television channel. How much can it possibly cost? And what is the cost of ignorance? If you're into cost, then you have to ask yourself, then what is the cost of ignorance? So why can't, in every state, why can't we follow that model and, either use TV channels or use some kind of easily downloadable text material? The teachers, so many of the teachers are just sitting home and getting their salaries. Could we not involve them in making, our curriculum, designing the curriculum in such a way that they could be delivered through mobile phones, through other online means? Could we not set up Wi-Fi centers in schools? Even college students, so many college girls will drop out. They are not going to come back to the universities and colleges. So I think that bridging the digital divide is today the biggest challenge for the civil society. The civil society will have to push it. The government will not do anything. The civil society will have to push. And then there is this huge fear of putting a smartphone in a girl's hand. You would think that immediately she will run away, she will be in love with the most unsuitable boy, and once again, because of her sexuality, she is being denied the access to education. And it is all the news that we listen to where, a child has committed suicide because he or she could not have access. It's always actually she. I have not yet heard, I don't want anybody to die, but I wonder why it is that it's the girls, 2 in Kerala and 1 in Bengal, I know of so far, who have committed suicide. It's probably because they realize that it's hopeless. They are not good smartphone for themselves. And so education is beyond their needs.
Are you working on any other book now? Do you have anything in mind?
Well, I am working on a series of articles on migrant workers. So I'm hoping that it will we will be able to publish it as a book sometime. Let's see. I'm on to labor now. So labor is one of the issues which are absorbing a lot of my time and interest.
There's a question from Sujisnu Mahato. Swati
Yes.
Bhattacharjee D has gender sensitivity among journalists, especially male journalists, increased in recent times, comparing the time when you started journalism.
Yeah, that's a good question. And yes, certainly. I think that it has changed with times. Firstly, there are many more women in journalism, so the idea of having women in journalism is much less acceptable. We were often asked what we were doing here, did we not have a family? And I don't think a lot of girls will be asked that now. It's also true that many women are in positions. So for junior people who are joining, it's easier to accept the idea of women journalists who have considerable experience and expertise. So the challenge that way is much less. And yes, certainly there are many more gender sensitized men in our newsrooms now than ever before. But the question, of course, is that do we have enough gender sensitized men? It would not matter whether you're a girl or a boy when you're working in a newsroom. And I don't think that that is still the case. That is what our study is indicating, that the differences are still there and they are still very real. So, yes, it's better than before, but it's still not good enough.
And how can we create a support system for women in media, especially in inaccessible towns and remote villages? If we want them to be in journalism, how can we create a support system for them so that they feel safe? They feel that.
Yeah, it is a very big question, and what we know is that what won't work, which is that I don't think mainstream media is going to be very useful in doing that, because as it is, mainstream media is going through a lot of retrenchment. So the idea of them hiring anybody, men or women, in marginal areas is impractical. I don't think we can count on that. Some experiments have been made by civil society organizations, for example, video volunteers, and there we also know about Khabar Lahariya and many such cooperatives of women, which started as women doing other things, but then they have also got together to produce a magazine, produce stuff like, I mean, produce a news channel or contributions to a news channel. So those are the important things that women can do. Have we done enough? I mean, there is still a lot of work, a lot of models that have to be experimented in. And as you know, in South Asian Women in Media, we experimented with one such model when we gave traveling fellowships to women, because women don't often travel. Their own organizations won't send them, and if they're independent journalists, they don't have the wherewithal to travel. So we get these fellowships, we arrange trips so that women can travel and see and write. But we have done it for 2 years, and let's see if we can do it for more years. That is one way of getting more women into the serious business of journalism.
Well, Swati, it was really interesting talking to you, but I'm sorry we are running out of time. So hope we have more such conversations in future. And
Definitely.
Yeah, and all the best for your book on migrant laborers.
Thank you.
I think.
And we are also looking forward to your next book. What will you write on that?
After Bulletproof, let me see. Let me think of something. I haven't really thought about it. Yeah, maybe it's something there brewing in my mind, but yes, I'll have to put it down in words. But it was nice talking to you, and yeah.
Thanks so much, Teresa.
Yeah. So hopefully we engage in more such conversations in future. Thank you so much,
Sure.
Swati, and thank you
Thank
everyone
you.
for watching.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.